Joshua.
Very much. Healthcare, economic disparities, political polarization, environment, immigration, urban issues, rural issues. These are the headlines of our times. These are the challenges of our times. These are the challenges we need to think creatively about. These challenges need artists. That's my dream, that communities everywhere know how to find and call on their artists when they face big challenges, and that artists everywhere are valued as one part of what a community needs to be healthy, no more or less important than all of the other things our communities need. I'm Laura Zabel, and I work at Springboard for the Arts. Springboard is an economic and community development organization based in Minnesota, run entirely by these 14 artists. Our work is all about helping artists make a living and a life and helping communities tap into the resource that artists can provide. And we do that by applying the creative process and devising simple mechanisms that embed artists meaningfully in the fabric of their community. And then by sharing promiscuously, we've been able to help over 100 communities all across the country do the same, and we've learned a heck of a lot from them in the process. I like to think of creativity kind of like the wind or the sun, like a natural resource. And the beautiful thing about that is that every neighborhood has access to this resource because every neighborhood, every block has artists. And just like other natural resources, artists produce energy that is clean and renewable and sustainable. But just like other resources, we need systems to tap into that resource. We can't leave the creative capacity of our communities to chance or haphazard coincidence. We need real systems that nurture and support our artists and that demand from them their engagement and commitment. And I actually think the answer to that question is pretty simple, and it just has to do with sharing. But before we get too much into the answer, I want to talk a little bit about the process that artists can provide, the way we create work at Springboard, and what the community gets out of that. And fundamentally, that has to do with disruption, connection, and love. Disruption. Sometimes disruption is a big bang, and sometimes disruption is just a small change in the way we think about something, just a small reframe, or as EMC would call it, discontinuous with previous practice. I'll give you an example. There are 86 million uninsured people in this country, and we know that artists are twice as likely to lack health insurance as the rest of the population. And so a few years ago, 14 artists, we decided we were going to do something about that. And we went around and told everyone, we are going to tackle health insurance. And everyone said, oh, that is very important. You are never going to be able to do anything about that. But we were determined, and we applied the creative process, and we listened actively to people who were working in the field of healthcare, and we figured something out. And that was that all those people were right. We were not going to be able to do anything about health insurance, but we could do something about health care. What if the fundamental need people have is actually for access to health care? That's something we could tackle. And just by reframing our thinking, just by disrupting what we thought the actual issue was, we've been able to help over 5,000 artists access high-quality, affordable health care. And the beautiful thing about that is it put us in a position now to be engaged in a big disruption that our communities are all going through. Springboard was just selected as one of a handful of outreach partners for the new health insurance exchange, which means that we're going to be able to apply our creative process to help people of all walks of life engage in this new disruption and understand what this change means for them. And so from all of this, I learned that by applying the creative process, you really can make change in a meaningful way. Connection. The Knight Foundation does this great study called The Soul of the Community, and it consistently shows that aesthetics, social offerings, and openness are the things that drive attachment to community. And that sounds like artists to me, but I don't think that's actually how people think about artists. I think people think art and artists belong in a museum or a concert hall, that it's a once-in-a-while luxury. There are literally thousands of people in each of your communities who care about the local economy, they care about who makes their things, they care about local food, and they would be completely intimidated by the idea of buying local art or going to a gallery or a studio visit. And so after admiring the community-supported agriculture model for a long time for the way that it makes those direct connections between producer and buyer, we decided, why couldn't there be community-supported art? And so we took that model and adapted it. And every year we sell 50 shares at the beginning of the summer, and we select 9 artists, and each of the 50 shareholders gets a piece of work from each of the 9 artists. We host pickup events so the artists and shareholders can build direct connections, and it works. The artists find new supporters and buyers of their work. Community members get connected to the makers in their very own community, and it connects the art community and the food community. And we found that people are hungry for that connection. The first year we did CSA, we sold out in a day. The next year we sold out in 5 minutes. And so what I learned from this is that it isn't for lack of desire. People want to connect to their own creative capacity, they want to connect to their creative community, but we have to devise the simple mechanisms and on-ramps that make it possible. Love. This is where I find my definition of quality, not the kind of quality that comes from markets or external validation or curators, but the kind of quality that comes from care and dedication and focus. Joy. So back at home, we're building a light rail. And of course, the hope and the expectation that comes from this kind of infrastructure development is that it will bring new economic development, that it will bring new connection and vitality to the communities. The reality of living through 4 years of this kind of intense construction is incredibly challenging if you're a small business, or if you're a neighborhood that has very real historic reasons to be worried about displacement. And this is the kind of challenge we think artists are particularly adept at helping with. Artists see the opportunity in this disruption. They see the beauty in the chaos, and we have these very real practical skills that can draw people and attention and dollars to a place. And so again, we tried to just figure out what's a simple mechanism that can make this connection possible, that can mobilize artists who are already in this community. So we supported local artists to design projects in partnership with businesses and neighborhood organizations. And in only 2 years, 600 artists have participated and generated over 150 projects. And they come to this work as neighbors and as artists, and they bring an incredible amount of care and dedication and focus and love. And those 150 projects also have very tangible results. They meaningfully increase business receipts. They help people literally navigate the mess of the construction, and they bring moments of daily joy and surprise to people who are stuck in endless traffic. And the cumulative effect of those 150 projects is that together, they generated over 30 million positive media impressions of these neighborhoods, which effectively flipped the narrative from negative to positive and gave artists and their neighbors a new sense of their voice and agency amidst this big community disruption. And from this, I learned that besides money, you need t-shirts, you need a common cause, and you need an invitation and a charge to invite people. So these are the assets that all communities have access to: disruption, connection, love. Every neighborhood could take advantage of these things if only they had the systems and the mechanisms to make that work. A few years ago, we decided that we would start sharing. It's kind of a radical idea, it turns out, in the nonprofit world. And we started by traveling all around the upper Midwest, teaching our entrepreneurship classes to anyone who would have us. And we learned that there's great value in that kind of cross-pollination, but we also learned that this way of working is totally limited. It's limited by our own capacity, and it's limited because the best solutions are always local and they're always permanent. So then we thought, oh, we should probably train other people to do what we do. And that failed miserably. And we learned that you can't assume to know what a community needs or wants. We learned that if this is truly going to be a movement, it needs to be authentic. And so 2 years ago, when the community of Fergus Falls called us and asked if we would consider opening a satellite office in this small rural community, we knew we wanted to work there, but we knew that that couldn't be a satellite, that it had to be something that was locally run, that was owned by the community. And that has really paid off. In only 2 years, artists in Fergus Falls have been engaged in some of the most important issues facing that community, built really interesting cross-sector partnerships, and they've been able to share ideas with rural communities all over the country. And we've had the benefit of an urban and a rural context for our work, and in an urban and rural connection and conversation, because this movement also needs to be reciprocal. Reciprocity is probably the most important value in Springboard's work. A few years ago, after we built that CSA program, we started getting calls from people who wanted to start similar programs. So we decided to share again, this time in the form of an easily distributable toolkit. And now we're at 50 CSAs and counting all over the country, and they all look different, and they all work. It works in Lincoln and Pittsburgh. It works in Miami and Fargo, because it's locally owned and adapted. So we have the benefit of the cross-pollination and of the locally owned resources. And I have to take a moment here and pause and just say that what I learned from this experience is that we can trust each other. We can share our resources, and we can trust people to take good care of them. I know it's entrancing to think that our work is so special that no one else would ever be able to do it, but we can share. This also put us in contact with a whole network of practitioners who are doing amazing work in their communities, but who don't have access to the resources or the profile or the privilege to be at convenings like this. So this movement needs to be ordinary. It needs to be for everybody. How do we do that? This is where we are right now, this big question. How do we make it so that anybody who wants to bring these resources to their community can, and anybody who wants to better engage with the creative capacity of their community can? We think it's pretty simple, actually, and we think it's a technology platform, a platform that's a partnership between practitioners all across the country, and that has just two main purposes. The first is to share ideas and inspiration, to share the good work that artists are already doing in communities all across the country, and share it in a way that's networked with media outlets so that actual real eyeballs see those stories. And the second part of the platform is about resource sharing. It's about practical tools and toolkits and resources that are available to anybody. And this will be a place where Springboard is committed to sharing pretty much everything we do, and where we're going to invite all of you to share too. Think about it this way. What if everybody at this amazing convening took the time to write down one how-to guide of one of their successful programs? What if anybody in the country had access to bring that program to their community? How might that accelerate the impact of our work? How might that change how people value art and artists? The creative capacity of our community is vast, and it's blowing all around us like the wind. It's ready to help, ready to provide the solutions we need, ready to power our future. All we have to do is share and work together. We're 14 artists, and we want to start a movement with you. Thank you.